Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, the spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio and a game loved by many, housing a killer soundtrack, a lovable cast of characters, and a pretty solid story overall. It's a game that I loved all the way back when it was first announced 4 years ago, and I'm still extremely happy with what the game eventually became to this day. But today, I wanted to see if I could answer a question I've had for the longest despite my near 300 hours of playtime. Can you beat Bomb Rush Cyberfunk in one continuous combo? Well, no. The game has an abundance of cutscenes, tons of loading areas, and locations that are locked off by story progression and rep requirements, but you guys aren't here for that. And plus, I also had to clickbait you guys into watching this video somehow. But now that you're here, let's go with the next best thing. I'm going to see if it's possible if I can hit every combo multiplier spot in every burrow in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. What is a combo multiplier spot? Well, first off, you have to understand what combo multipliers are. In Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, you can increase your score by gaining combo multipliers. You can do so by three main ways: leaning into hard corners on rails, wall running, and hitting half pipes. Doing these grants you a single combo multiplier and adds to your score multiplicatively. You get more multipliers to increase your final score. Now, to set some ground rules. In order for me to have fully comboed a burrow, I have to hit every singular place where possible to gain a multiplier. I need to hit every single corner, billboard or vehicle, and half pipe in every burrow in one combo. Some more things to note before we get started. Every burrow, with the exception of Matan and Millennium Mall, have a separate area that I can't enter without going through a loading area. I lose my combo if I enter these locations, but if these areas have enough multiplier spots to be significant, I will add that number to the final number at the end of the combo. I will also be excluding story-related areas such as the police station in the start of the game and Dreamscape segments, as I simply don't feel like including them in this series. We'll also be doing each individual burrow as its own video, because quite frankly, if I did every burrow in one video, we'd be here forever. That's a lot of editing for me, so one burrow at a time. And finally, I will be doing this entire challenge in the vanilla physics of BRC. Movement Plus is a mod that you can add to your game that substantially increases the movement in BRC. However, it increases the speed to the point where small curves and turns and rail geometry create tiny multipliers that give us unnecessary numbers to our final score. So for the sake of keeping things simple, I will be using vanilla Bomb Rush physics. Now that everything is out of the way, let's get started with our first burrow.
Hey, it's me. We've been talking twice a week. I like the speed, and it just makes me wanna sing. Hey, it's me. We've been talking twice a week. You just make me wanna say.
Actually, before we get started on the first burrow, we have to go through the first location you can actually start comboing, the Hideout. This one is fairly simple due to it being a relatively small area to combo in, so there's a tinier amount of multipliers to hit overall. I did have a bit of trouble figuring out the route on this one, but once I got going, I was able to hit most of the rail corners without issue. The trickiest part came to getting the half pipes on the upper levels. Half pipes are super weird in this game. Despite the animations working properly, you could hit a half pipe and lose your combo entirely depending on how fast you hit the dip. But other than that, the max number of combo multipliers in the Hideout is 42. 44? Yeah, so basically some small little corners and turns and divots will actually count as multipliers. I don't know the exact angle requirement, but if you hit one of these turns at a specific speed and lean a specific way, sometimes they'll be counted as hard corners. It is pretty prominent throughout most of the game, especially in places like Millennium Square. As far as counting these like pseudo multipliers, it depends on how easy they are to get for me. If I get these multipliers without too much hassle, I'll go ahead and add it to the final score, but if I have to try again repeatedly and repeatedly to get it, then we're just gonna count them out for the sake of keeping things simple. But yeah, geometry, you hit a rail specific speed and you get a hard corner by accident, no big deal, moving on. Moving back to the Hideout, there's a couple of hidden spots that people might have actually missed when going to full combo this area. For example, these telephone wires here. They each have two individual corners for you to hit. One on the initial rail ride atop the main wire, and one for riding up on the pole itself. A bit tricky, but nothing I couldn't handle. And with that, the Hideout was finished and we can actually move on to the first burrow. Moving on to the actual first borough, Versum Hill is a pretty open-ranged area. Nothing about this borough seems immediately concerning since it's the first level in the game. We have 4 major locations to work on: the beginning downhill segment, the main civilian area, the upper basketball court, and the underground bazaar. Now you'd think that we can just start comboing at the start of the level, right? Well, not exactly. There's a monorail line in Versum that houses 2 billboards, a monorail with 2 sides to wall run on, and a rail segment at the beginning of the tunnel. To get to this location, you'd normally have to enter via a loading area, and since combos don't carry over between loading areas, we have to get every spot on top of this monorail section and then drop down afterward. The billboards are extremely easy, and timing the jumps on both sides of the monorail are simple enough. We run into an issue with this rail at the tunnel though. Getting the 2 corners on the right side are pretty simple, but however, the 2 on the left are a bit weird. I don't know why this happens exactly, but in order to get the multipliers on this side, you have to hold in the opposite direction, in this case leaning left instead of right for both corners in this scenario. Once we do all of this, we should have 19 multipliers. We won't be doing the inner train area in this run because we have to enter via loading area again, and sadly that's a no-go. However, if you were curious, there were exactly 21 multipliers in that room, and we'll add this to the max number we get at the end of this challenge. After hopping off the monorail, I begin to backtrack to the downhill segment at the start of the level. There's a truck that cycles through that has 2 sides that I can wall run on. I grab all the rails and billboards while I wait for this truck to show up, and I make sure I'm in a good spot to grab both sides in one cycle. I continue about with no issues, getting the rails and billboards near the train station, and then proceeding onto the main area. The clusters of 4 billboards are super easy to get since you can jump immediately to the next one after getting off the previous wall. After a while, I make my way up to the upper left side of the main area and switch to the skateboard. And I know what you're thinking, I did say that this is going to be a non-modded run. To be honest, I completely forgot that I had my quick swap mod on. It's one of those mods that I've used so long that it's become muscle memory and burned into my brain at this point. Thankfully though, there isn't really a superior style to be using for this type of challenge. I only really need to use the skateboard to get on top of the hydrant here so that I can grab the last 3 billboards in this area. Inline skates and BMXs don't really have any game-changing abilities in this challenge, as the skates only break glass from above and the BMXs need to be completely still in order to open certain doors, both abilities being completely irrelevant to this challenge. I make my way back over to the main area and continue comboing. Once I finish these last few billboards, I start heading towards the basketball court. Getting there and keeping your combo can be scary at first if you hit the stairs at all, but thankfully I can use a coin drop to ignore the stairs entirely. Once I'm on the main flat top, it's business as usual, collecting rails and billboards before heading to the area where you fight Redfield for the first time. After finishing that area, I slide under this back area to get the final billboard in the downhill segment where the Get Enough record is, and make my way down to the bazaar. I wanted to get half of the upper bazaar part done first, and then work my way down to the symmetrical rail segment below. Then I take some billboards to get the remaining rail segments that I missed, and then one long snake ride for the funsies before getting the final 2 billboards, thus completely full comboing Versum Hill with a whopping 161 multipliers. Adding in the inner train area gets us a grand total of 182 multipliers in Versum Hill altogether. And that's the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you who've made it all the way through, and I'll be sure to get started on the second video if there's enough demand for it whenever I can. I've been having to deal with a little bit of editor's block recently, which is why I haven't really made any of the ZZZ guides or anything on my TikTok for that matter, but this little project right here has actually reignited my love for editing, and I can't wait to start making more videos like this in the future. So, as far as the Millennium Square video goes, I'll probably get started on working on it, most likely towards the end of next week. I don't know. I'm more or less just like rambling at this point, but I really appreciate each and every one of you who have watched this video, and do like and comment below on whether or not you want to see more of this, whether or not you have any criticisms, or just if I got any information wrong at all. I love receiving criticism, I love receiving comments, I just love interacting with you guys in general, and this video was so much fun to make. It really reignited my passion for editing, and I cannot wait to make more of these things. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.